What's good? It's your boy Dee Brown, and we're gonna talk about the time I moved to Atlanta while being homeless. Um, so first of all, we're gonna get into this and just let you know who I am and what I've been through and things like that. So here we go. This is a little personal, so just work with me, please. All right. All right, so moving to Atlanta, I moved to Atlanta in June of 2018. And June, July of 2018. And to give you a little quick backstory on that, I'm from Mississippi and I went to Mississippi State University, electrical engineer, rapper, poet, photographer, and videographer at the time. And December, I graduated in 2017. So a few months later, I had passed, and I decided I was going to move to Atlanta. It was a plan that I had for about 8 years before I had graduated. So I worked throughout 2018, and when June came around, I went to my ATM and only had $400 in there, maybe 450 or something like that. And I took some money out, $1,300 worth out of my ATM when I only had $400. So I overdrafted about 800 and something dollars from Trustmark, which was a big deal for me. And I just said, I need cash. I had no plans. I had no apartment, no nothing in Atlanta. I made some visits and it just didn't pan out. I had one time I went and one of my friends basically lied to me on the trip, so I was never able to apartment search. Another trip I went just got sabotaged by ex-girlfriend and some family stuff. So when I finally decided to go to Atlanta, I took that money out and I drove from Mississippi to Atlanta in my truck. About a 4.5 hour drive, and I just left. And when I got there, I had started looking for a job. I still had no place to stay in the South. The summer, it's 100 degrees easily, like over 100 degrees. And living in a truck when it's 100 degrees is kind of rough. But you got to do what you got to do, and you got to follow your dreams if you really believe in yourself as a music artist. So I ended up working at Chipotle, I believe was my very first job. And it was cool. Chipotle was cool. I basically lied to them and said that I was getting paid, that I had a lot of experience that I didn't have. And they paid me $11 an hour, which for me was a lot. And it was the most that anybody was getting paid in the store because they knew the most, they had the most experience in food and stuff like that. I just lied my ass off. I faked the funk. Told them I was available anytime. I'm willing to learn everything. I just needed some money. And I was spending a lot of money in gas in Atlanta. So I started working at Chipotle, and I remembered something every day I got back from Chipotle. I don't believe in asking people for favors. I don't want people to hold anything over my head or anything like that. So I decided to be homeless while working there, but I remembered something. There's a guy named Vic. Remember this name. There's a guy named Vic, and I know multiple Vics. I think this guy's Vic H. I think his last name is H. So he was visiting us in Mississippi one time, and I didn't trust him. Nothing. I didn't trust anything about him. He seemed kind of sneaky, very untrustworthy, and like he was up to something. One of those guys that you really just can't bring around women. He was at my house. He slept on my floor, my couch or something the whole weekend. It was like a college weekend, party weekend, something like that. Ultimately, before he left, he said, "Hey, I heard you moving to Atlanta, D." He was like, "Yeah." I was like, "Yeah." He said, "Well, if you ever need a place to stay for a little while, hit me up. So and so, another guy, so and so also stayed on my couch before he had a place to stay." So I said, "Cool, appreciate it." I didn't know him like that. So we fast forward. I'm in Atlanta working at Chipotle. It's like my first day, second day. I hit Vic up, And, he let me sleep on his couch. So what I was doing with Vic was, what I was doing with Vic, I was cooking. So I would go to work. I would get off of work. I call him to get in the gate of his apartment because you have to do it that way. And he wasn't at home. And then I would like either buy some fast food for him, like ask him if he wants anything, or I'll just like cook something. Most of the time I was buying something because people don't always want what you cook. And he had a 1-bedroom apartment that was pretty big, paying like $1,700 on it a month. And I even offered to pay, but since he was like, no, I was like, okay, cool. I'm just going to buy you food and stuff. I was at Chipotle and I ended up staying with this lady. So I probably stayed with Vic maybe a week or two. Ended up moving with this lady named Honey Love. And she is a older lady, maybe in her 50s, like somebody's grandmother. Not old, but in her 50s. And she said she was looking for somebody to stay in one of her rooms on Facebook. So I responded to her and I met up and everything like that. And when I met her and her assistant. I've never seen somebody an assistant before. So when I met the assistant, fine as hell. She was fine. I think her name was like Myra or something like that. Thick, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful woman. Like 22 or something. This lady named Honey Love, she basically told me, yo, I was really looking for a woman to stay. You're male. It makes me kind of side-eye this whole situation. She was going back and forth with it. But ultimately, she said I could stay $800 for a month. And I only needed a month because I had another place to stay at Westmore Lofts in Atlanta, student living. So I really just needed time for a month, maybe a month and a half. So I gave her my $800, which was all I had. I spent the rest of the money on gas and possibly food. And Chipotle has not paid me yet because they pay you 3 weeks after you start. So, and I came in on a paycheck week. So I ain't had no money after that, but it was cool. And after about a week, that's when shit started going different. I was in the room and I didn't bother anybody. The house, like anytime I wanted to eat, the reason I'm eating fast food was that she would never cook or allow anybody to cook. And there was no food in the fridge. Like, I've never seen a fridge literally empty before. There was no pictures of family. It was nothing. It was just like a home with couches. And it didn't even have cleaning supplies. I was confused. And when she did cook, she would put some in the oven and it wouldn't even get you full. So I was always eating out. And there was like this, it was like a Friday or a Saturday or something after I stayed about 4 or 5 days. And she said, she came in the room and I was never bothering anybody. She came in the room and said, hey, I didn't realize that somebody had booked this house on Airbnb, a production, and they need it for a week. And I declined it, but I think my assistant confirmed it. She blamed it on Myra. Myra was not at the house at this time. And I was like, I didn't get it. I didn't understand. So I asked her to explain again. And in my mind, I'm like, yo, she's lying. She's definitely lying. So I told her straight up, I said, if you're lying to me, I'm going to fuck you up. And she said, what'd you just say to me? I said, if you're lying to me, I'm going to fuck you up. And I guess she just couldn't believe that I was saying it to her face like that. So she said, okay. She said, I can leave some of my stuff there. I said, no, I'm taking everything with me. So I packed everything I could with me. And her brother came, somebody I never met, like 300 pounds wide, just a fat dude, 300 pounds wide, cool guy, I guess. He works in the music industry. So I'm moving my stuff out into my truck. And she says, I have somebody that I know that works at a hotel. It could have been a Marriott, I think it was. We're just going to say the lady's name is Jessica. So Honey says, I know a lady named Jessica that works at the Marriott at a certain time. I can get you a room there, blah, 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 woo, doo, woo, doo, woo. So I said, okay. So I take my stuff. I go back to Vic's crib. I'm like, Vic, man, I need somewhere to stay right now. She said that, I gave him the rundown. We were kind of hesitant about it. And Vic actually wasn't home at the time, so I was waiting in my truck for Vic to unlock his door. And I decided to call. I said, let me call this Marriott that's in the city she's talking about. And I called, and they said they don't know who I'm talking about. So I called a few hours later. They don't know who I'm talking about. Nobody knows Jessica. I call a little bit later, and they say, well, Jessica doesn't work at this time. So ultimately, I realized that Honey Love lied to me. So I'm mad. I'm pissed off. I'm very pissed because I have no money, and I feel like I got played. So Vic comes, chilling in the house, and I'm talking. I was just like, Vic, man, I think I got finessed. He said, what happened? And I said, she kicked me out because she said something about a production in Airbnb, and I don't know what's going on. And when I try to contact her, she says she's dropping her sister off at the airport. I don't know how long it takes to drop your sister off from the airport from Buckhead to South Atlanta. Actually, I do know. It's 30 minutes there, 30 minutes back. 1 hour. In traffic, 2 hours. It's been about 6 hours at this point. The sun was down. She kicked me out around like 10, 11 in the morning. At the latest, noon. So I told Vic, I said, man, I give up, man. I think I just got finessed. And I said, Vic, man, I'm sorry, but I don't have a place to stay. I don't have a backup plan for this summer. I have somewhere to stay mid-August, beginning of August, but I don't have nowhere to stay in the summer. And he gave me a look, and then he was like, nah, he's like, cool, yeah, you can stay. But it was a look that I saw. And he said, man, you need to get your money back. And I had another excuse, and he said, man, you get your money back. And that brought some motivation with me. So I called, and she said, I'm still dropping my sister off. And I just spazzed. Acted a fucking fool. And I know you can't say spaz, but I don't give a damn, bro. Y'all had these words that people can't say all the time. So I snapped out. I lost it. I told her, basically I said, if you don't get my money back, then I'm going to fuck up the house and your son. I was not happy about saying that. She cussed me out, and I cussed her out. And then I hung up in her face because I wanted her to know I was serious. So I told myself, I said, I'm going to go over there in, I think, 30 minutes. I told her 15. Maybe vice versa. I'm not sure. But I gave her a time limit, and I gave myself a mental time limit to go over there and fuck everything up. I made up in my mind that I was going to go to jail. I've never been to jail. Never been arrested. I've been close a few times, but I've never been arrested, prison, jail, none of that stuff. And I pride myself on that. That day, I was definitely ready to go to jail. I was in Atlanta for only like 2 to 3 weeks, maybe. I slept on Vic's couch, then this lady Honey Love's couch, and then back on Vic's couch. I can tell Vic is aggravated, making threats to this lady. And by the time I'm ready to go ahead and leave and say, you know what, time to go to jail, fuck some shit up, she calls me. And before I get into the phone call, her son is autistic. Her son is about somewhere between 6 and 9 years old. Sweetheart. And I knew if I told her I'll fuck up the house and her son, she was going to listen. I was just going to fuck up the house. I was just mad. And she calls me when I'm finna ride out and says, we're on the way. So now she's on the way. After that phone call of cussing her out, it only took her about 15 to 30 minutes to call me back and say she on the way. When she came, she came with her brother, and they like packed up the rest of my clothes that I couldn't fit with me, and then like had my money out like they just grabbed it from the bank. Like, it was so crisp. I thought the money was fake. It was so crisp. I thought the money was fake. So the money was real. I got my money back. I told Vic about it. He was happy. Everybody's happy. The next day I say, I'm still got to look for a crib because Vic didn't plan on me staying for 30 plus days, 40 plus days. trying to figure things out. So I'm trying to make money because Chipotle hasn't given me a paycheck yet. And I still have about another week, maybe a week and a half for Chipotle to pay me. Still broke. Got $800, but I'm trying to figure it out. With an old school truck, that gas is serious in Atlanta, especially if you're driving everywhere. So I told myself it's time to make some money. I was going to go to the mall and take pictures of people and try to get donations. I had some sort of motivation to make money instantly. I told Vic. So before I went out there, I went to the grocery store and I bought all raw meats. Then I bought peanut butter, jelly, and bread. When I dropped off the raw meats in this freezer, I was headed to the mall to make money. I told him I'll hit you up later. As soon as I went to the mall, which is about 15 minutes later, I get a text message. And if you give me time, if you don't believe me, then I will search for that message and read it to you. But that message said, "Hey, man, I'm sorry to tell you this, but my family's house is flooded out, like a pipe busted or something. And they got to stay at my crib for a while. I don't know how long." And I looked at that text message. I said, this man is lying. And he didn't like the fact that I moved back in his crib. So I was in Lenox Mall. And I've never told this story to nobody, but I sat down when he sent me that text message. When I say I was just about to start taking pictures of people, I was getting my camera right. You take pictures of people, you get it off your camera onto your phone, you give it to them, and if they give you $5 or $10 or some type of donation. As soon as I was finna get ready to get started, he sends me that text message. And I sat down and I was down, bro. I was down and out. It was it. I just told myself, yo, bro, like, it's done. I was close to giving up, and this white lady came up to me. And she asked me and said, "You need prayer?" And I looked and thought to myself, because I'm always trying to figure out why things happen, like why people coming up to me, why Deion Sanders decided to coach in Mississippi, who wants to live in Mississippi, why would someone, I question a lot of things that people don't have to do that they choose to do. And she said, "Do I need prayer?" Like a white lady coming up to a dude with dreads asking if you need prayer. And I just said, yeah. And she said, "What do you need prayer for?" And I said, "I just found out I was homeless." And I almost broke down, but I held it in. And she prayed for me. I may have let out a tear. I'm not really sure, to be honest with you. But that was like a glimmer of hope for me, from God or whatever you believe in. So with that glimmer of hope, I got myself together. I can't remember if I took pictures of people or not. I can't even remember if I was successful. But I did feel a lot better. And I went back to Vic's crib to just pack up. I accepted. I swallowed it. Just be homeless, bro. It's okay. You got a camera. You can make money. Just be homeless. And I swallowed that pill. I made it to Vic's house, his apartment. And he said, fucking Vic, I knock on a door. He opens it. There's like this computer desk thing, like right next to the door. And he's faking like he's on a phone call. He wasn't on the phone before then, because you can hear it before he opens, but he's faking a phone call when it opens. He said, "Oh, shit. Oh, I'm sorry, Mom. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cuss." And I'm thinking to myself, why you faking a phone call right there in front of me? So he acts like he's getting off the phone. And I open the freezer and there's nothing but raw foods. I spent about $300 to $400 of the $800 that I just got back buying raw foods for him to, just say, basically, I appreciate it. I would help you with rent like I offered, but you said no, so here's food. But he waited until I bought raw food, waited till I left the house, fed me some bullshit, and the only thing I could take with me was bread. Who spends $300 to $400 on raw foods to help somebody in appreciation for staying with them, being homeless? Somebody who's a friend of a friend. And not only that, one of my homies, and I won't say his name, one of my homies actually vouched for Vic. I was not going to stay with him, and I said, man, I don't trust Vic. What should I do? He said, nah, Vic's solid, man. Vic's good. Vic's solid. But turns out Vic's not solid if you ask me. So I get my bread and I leave the other $300 to $400 of food in his freezer because a homeless man can't cook raw food. Went back to my truck and I spent the next 42 plus days homeless. And during that time of being homeless, I also quit my job at Chipotle. We'll get into that story another time. But I just want to say in conclusion, it was about 55 days until I was able to move into my place in August. And I was homeless for longer than that. But we'll tell that story another time. I appreciate y'all for listening. This is my first time getting real personal about this. Somebody commented and said, I've been there before. OTFJ. Shout out to OTFJ, man. And a lot of people have. I guess a lot of the country has, man. And I decided to go on a dream, saying I'm J. Cole fan. That's what got me started into this thing. Have you this dollar in a dream type of thing, and you feel like strive for anything while you're young, and it's Atlanta. Or, I'm from a small place. I'm from a place where there's no opportunity. Mississippi, there's nothing there. No opportunity. None. You go because you believe in something, you got to go through all this hell. So, yeah, I was homeless in Atlanta from June 2018 to August 2018 and more. But we'll get into that another time. But I will say after 50 plus days of being homeless, literally in my truck, that part of homelessness, living in my truck for 50 something plus days after Vic kicked me out. I want to leave you on a tip that I did see a story he posted. His parents were never staying with him. Ever. He always posted on Instagram. So, I got confirmation on that. So I ended up moving to Westmar Lofts, which is a student living, and I was not a student. And that's how that went. OTFJ says, okay, I'm from Alabama, but I live in Colorado. Shout out to you, man. Alabama, man. I try to show love people from in Alabama or from Alabama because Mississippi, to me, is like the sister or brother state. I think we should support each other personally, but, appreciate you, OTFJ. If anybody has any questions, let me know. If anything you want to say, leave it in the comments or hit me up. I don't mind. I didn't expect people to actually watch this. I got 9 people watching this. I didn't expect nobody to watch this. So I appreciate it, man. I'll tell y'all more stories about my my journeys and things like that. I got a lot for y'all. But, appreciate y'all for checking in. Once again, my name is Dee Brown, a.k.a. Bruce D. Roy from Mississippi in Atlanta. Music artist, photographer, videographer, actor, and more. Y'all, please be safe. Shout out to OTFJ for being so open, being a real one, and being honest, man. Deuces. Be safe.